Good morning. Please take your seats. I call the second session of the Parliamentary Conference on the Euro-Mediterranean region and the challenges posed by climate change, economic development, and environmental migration to order. Dear colleagues, it is a pleasure to welcome you this morning to the Parliamentary Conference's second session focusing on this issue. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to our hosts, Parliament, and especially its staff, as well as to the International Secretariat for the organizing of timely debate. I also thank our distinguished panelists for the participation. I would like also to congratulate Morocco because according to the United Nations report spread today, 3 countries, Morocco, Gambia and India, achieved the goal of not surpassing 1.5 degrees Celsius limit to global warming. Congratulations. Dear Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers for inviting me today to address such a distinguished forum in a capacity of a chairperson. Having you all today to discuss the challenges imposed by climate change in the Euro-Mediterranean region clearly demonstrates the strong level of cooperation and importance that the second dimension has. Thus, the OSCPA fully supports priorities set by the current Slovak chairmanship, especially the ones in relation to energy and cooperation, migration and economic development, as well as implementing SDGs to face the problem of water management, drought, floods, and pollution. Today, climate change carries serious implications for international peace and stability. It is going fast, and existing environmental problems in the Mediterranean basin that are caused by a combination of changes in land use, increasing pollution, and declining biodiversity. For 5 broad and interconnected impact domains: water, ecosystems, food, health, and security. Current change and future scenarios consistently point to significant and increasing risks during the coming decades that are threatening sustainable economic development in the Mediterranean. Moreover, the impact of climate change on food and water security to exacerbating natural disasters is fueling migration, social tensions, and environmental degradation. In addition to conflicts and political stability in the countries of MENA, Middle East and North Africa region, economic and environmental factors including climate change and its related challenges. Furthermore, in May of 2019, the OSCPA conducted a study visit to the Arctic region to witness firsthand the detrimental effects of climate change and global warming in our region and security risks to the entire OSCE region by the severe disruptions to the Arctic environment. With wildfires sweeping across large swaths of the Arctic region and the Amazon forests exacerbating climate change, ice caps melting and animal habitat losses, the OSCE leaders called for the curbing of global GHG, greenhouse gas emissions, the protection of biodiversity and the deeper involvement of parliamentarians in the fight against climate change. Climate change is moving faster than we are. The importance of economic growth, sustainable development, and environmental protection are mutually reinforcing and strictly interlinked. We need transition to a low-carbon economy. We have to reduce GHG emissions and promote clean economic growth through implementation of SDGs and Paris Agreement. Climate diplomacy and disaster risk reduction can contribute to conflict prevention and confidence building in combating climate change. First, COP22, which was held here in 2016. The forum in Marrakesh was the first where the pathways to Paris Agreement implementation would have been identified and global low-carbon transition would have started. Secondly, having in mind that OSCPA consists of 323 parliamentarians, the PA represents a valuable bridge between the people and the governments in OSCE region in the interest of promoting inclusive dialogue and transparency. In 2019 Luxembourg Declaration, the OSCPA urged the participating states to facilitate adoption of Paris Agreement and implement the UN Agenda 2030 and their SDGs. The goals stipulated in this agenda to achieve cross-dimension sustainable development will need the full engagement and the will of each member country, both in terms of domestic reforms and international cooperation. Thus, we must focus on strengthening resilience and adapt capacity to climate-related hazards and to integrate these measures in the different national policies. Don't see climate change as a fashionable topic. Don't see climate change as a mediatic issue only. Don't think in climate change as a matter of activists. We still have responsibility as politicians, and we should do more in the name of the future and young generations. So be committed. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, I hope that in these spirits we will have a fruitful and constructive discussion this morning. So, without further delay, I would like to welcome our speakers today. First, we will hear from Her Excellency Mr. Mustafa Sislo, Speaker of the Economic Community of West African States Parliament. Next, there will be a presentation by Ms. Teresa Botella, Deputy Chief of Mission of the International Organization for Migration in Morocco. After that, there will be presentation by Mr. Ralph Ernst, Deputy Coordinator of OSCE Economic and Environmental Activities and Head of Environmental Activities at the office. This will also be followed by an open debate. Before giving the floor to Her Excellency Mr. Mustafa Sislo, Speaker of Economic Community of West African States Parliament, please allow me to introduce His Excellencies. Excellency Ms. Sislo started his political career as head of General Secretariat of the National Union of the Traders and Industrialists of Senegal in the Diorbel region in 1993. In 1998, he was elected deputy to the Senegalese National Assembly and was re-elected in both 2007 and 2012. Before becoming second Vice President of the National Assembly of the Republic of Senegal, he was Minister Counselor to the President of Senegal between 2004 and 2016. Her Excellency, Mr. Cicelo served as President of the Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture of the Diourbel region. He was Treasurer of the Regional Consulate Chamber and member of the Common Policies Committee of the West African Economic and Monetary Union in Lomé. He became a member of the Standing Conference of African and Francophone Consulate Chambers based in Paris. Her Excellency, Mr. Cicelo, has also acted as the Chairman of the Committee of Infrastructures and Equipment of the Council of Senegal for Social and Economic Affairs from 2004 to 2007. In 2016, he was appointed Speaker of the Economic Community of the West African States Parliament. Now, Your Excellency, please, you have the floor. Thank you, Your Excellency, for your interesting participation here today.
Merci. Monsieur le Président de l'OCDE, Messieurs les membres du Bureau, Monsieur le Président de la Chambre des conseillers du Maroc, Messieurs les experts, distingués invités, Mesdames et Messieurs, permettez-moi tout d'abord, avant d'entrer dans le vif du sujet, d'adresser mes sincères remerciements à son Excellence Hakim Ben Chama, président de la Chambre des conseillers du Maroc, pour avoir eu l'amabilité, l'affabilité de me convier à cette 18e session d'automne de l'Assemblée parlementaire de l'Organisation pour la sécurité et la coopération en Europe. Au nom de la communauté des États de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, je voudrais vous remercier tous. Mesdames et Messieurs, chers participants, c'est avec un immense plaisir que je me retrouve ici, en terre chérifienne, pour prendre part aux travaux de cette session qui revêt une importance capitale pour les générations futures. Il me plaît aussi d'intervenir sur les questions brûlantes de l'heure, à savoir les défis posés par le changement climatique, dit aussi le dérèglement du climat dans la Méditerranée et la problématique de la migration. Comme vous le savez, la Méditerranée fait partie des points chauds de notre planète et les impacts des changements climatiques y sont très ressentis, particulièrement sur ses rives sud et est. Loin d'être exclusif au bassin méditerranéen, ce phénomène devient aussi une réalité pour l'ensemble de nos sociétés, avec des conséquences qui sont déjà très préoccupantes et qui sont annoncées comme potentiellement dramatiques, voire irréversibles. Face à cette situation alarmante, les pays émergents et ceux en voie de développement sont les plus touchés par ce phénomène dégradant, alors que même leur contribution historique à cette problématique est si limitée. Mais force est de reconnaître que la mobilisation internationale autour du climat témoigne d'une prise de conscience réelle, même si l'action reste encore complexe et parcellaire, et à tout point de vue. L'analyse des engagements pris par les États parties contractantes à la Convention cadre des Nations Unies pour les changements climatiques montre à suffisance de l'ampleur des efforts à accomplir pour atteindre des objectifs fixés dans l'accord de Paris. Les acteurs non étatiques et les gouvernements infranationaux se sont, dans ce cadre, mobilisés de manière active aux côtés des États et cette dynamique est amenée à jouer un rôle crucial pour renforcer l'ambition internationale. Pour autant, au-delà des engagements, la mise en œuvre reste le véritable défi. En Méditerranée comme ailleurs, l'agenda du climat doit s'inscrire dans une action concertée, immédiate et à long terme, ambitieuse et porteuse d'une solidarité agissante renforcée. Chers participants, mesdames et messieurs, le changement climatique à l'œuvre exacerbe les vulnérabilités environnementales spécifiques au bassin méditerranéen, selon un récent travail qui a analysé des centaines d'études scientifiques sur le sujet. En effet, le géographe et écologue Kramer a précisé le contour des problèmes déjà existants, le rôle préoccupant du réchauffement et les enjeux que cela pose pour la science et pour la gouvernance régionale. Donc, quelles sont les vulnérabilités environnementales qui fragilisent les régions méditerranéennes? M. Kramer, en ces mots, nous rapporte, je cite, « La Méditerranée et ses pays riverains ne constituent pas un milieu plus fragile que d'autres. Mais ce hotspot de la biodiversité, où vivent de nombreuses espèces spécifiques, également haut lieu d'histoire, de civilisation et de culture, est soumis aujourd'hui à une expansion très soutenue de la présence et des activités anthropiques. L'urbanisation est freinée, la satisfaction des besoins élémentaires, la multiplication des activités et échanges économiques exercent une intense pression sur les terres et la mer, sur les ressources, les milieux naturels et les modes de production. » Fin de citation. En ce sens, je l'avais rappelé hier, nous ne pouvons que faire des rappels. Les conséquences sont déjà très perceptibles, voire visibles, notamment le risque de diminution de la biodiversité et l'altération des écosystèmes, l'épuisement des ressources marines et hydriques et la pollution préjudiciable au plan environnemental et sanitaire. À cet effet, le changement climatique se distingue nettement des autres facteurs de vulnérabilité. Au-delà de son impact propre, il peut en effet amplifier la portée de tous les autres. Donc, à l'évidence, nous pouvons retenir qu'une des premières conséquences attendues du changement climatique dans la région est la réduction drastique des précipitations. S'ajoutant au réchauffement qui accroît l'évaporation, elle va encore restreindre la disponibilité hydrique dans les milieux naturels comme pour les activités humaines. De même, le réchauffement a un impact sanitaire direct, par la multiplication des épisodes de canicule et indirecte en favorisant la diffusion septentrionale de pathogènes et de vecteurs de maladies. Sur un autre registre, et pas des moindres, le dérèglement climatique provoque des anomalies dans la floraison du plancton végétal marin, lequel recycle moins bien le gaz carbonique. Lorsque nous puisons massivement l'eau des nappes phréatiques, nous envoyons dans l'océan un surcroît de liquide jusque-là captif du sous-sol. La destruction des forêts, c'est même un truisme que de le dire, accélère la montée des eaux qui occasionne sur ces entrefaites des conséquences dramatiques et insondables. Mesdames et messieurs, vous voyez donc que les facteurs aggravants sont légion et qu'il urge de limiter l'action néfaste de l'homme. Nous devons donc réfléchir à ce qu'il en coûte d'outrager la planète. Et au-delà de la montée globale du niveau des océans, qui menace plus de 150 millions de personnes dans la région, le réchauffement risque aussi d'avoir des effets considérables sur l'océanographie physique. Le bassin de la Méditerranée est en effet peu profond et la chaleur, en se transmettant à toute la colonne d'eau, pourrait perturber les courants marins et déstabiliser davantage les écosystèmes océaniques. Quels sont donc les enjeux pour la science et les politiques? D'éminents experts et chercheurs se sont déjà prononcés. Le premier est de développer la collaboration régionale entre scientifiques, puis entre scientifiques et décideurs, car aucun pays ne peut agir efficacement seul face à un tel fléau, un tel problème. Il nous faut un effort soutenu, collectif, pour arriver à bout de ce phénomène, le contenir. À l'évidence, il y a aussi un fort déséquilibre dans les capacités de recherche, d'observation et d'adaptation autour des effets du changement climatique entre le nord et le sud du bassin. Donc, allons très vite en agissant ensemble pour ne pas rater le départ du développement. Chers participants, dans un autre registre, je ne pourrai pas jamais clore mon intervention sans vous faire part du phénomène qui tend à diviser, mais aussi à gangréner aussi fortement le développement de notre sous-région qu'est la migration clandestine. Ceci, je veux dire la migration clandestine, touche à la fois la vie des États et de leur population jeune, mais surtout cette jeunesse africaine, notre jeunesse. Le phénomène migratoire qui, chaque jour, fait des ravages et crée des victimes dans notre continent, doit être considéré comme un fléau qui freine le développement des économies et de nos États respectifs. Il y a donc urgence à agir. Alors, nous devons unir nos forces et redoubler nos efforts pour faire face à cette situation alarmante, persistante devant une communauté internationale qui, malgré tous ces efforts, se trouve souvent désarmée, pour ne pas dire passive. De nombreuses solutions ont été proposées, et notamment à travers les forats et autres séminaires de sensibilisation sur les conséquences néfastes du flux migratoire, auxquels s'ajoutent les accords et traités internationaux, mais, hélas, jusqu'ici, la situation est loin d'être définitivement résolue. Elle reste presque entière. Devons-nous taire devant l'ampleur du malheur? Quelle approche novatrice devrions-nous tenter, développer? Voilà une série de questions de gros sous ce que nous devons, en tant que représentants de nos vaillantes populations, prendre très au sérieux afin de mieux sensibiliser les populations, quel que soit par ailleurs le coût. À notre sens, il appartient au gouvernement des États de tenir compte des conséquences issues de la migration pour prévoir des crédits budgétaires conséquents destinés à la création de micro-projets, oui, de projets au profit des jeunes, susceptibles d'employer la frange juvénile dans les travaux d'infrastructures engagés dans les États en vue de leur insertion dans le circuit productif. Lutter contre le sous-emploi, éduquer les enfants et veiller à leur insertion. Distingués invités, je vais clore mon propos en renouvelant mes félicitations à votre organisation et ma solidarité, comme je l'ai dit hier. Mais remercier Sa Majesté le roi Mohamed VI pour tout ce qu'il fait pour rapprocher les peuples dans le cadre de la coopération Sud-Sud, mais aussi dans le cadre de la coopération Nord-Sud. Je remercie le président de votre organisation et le président de la Chambre des conseillers qui m'ont fait l'honneur de participer et de délivrer un message. C'est un message que je délivre au nom de la communauté des États de l'Afrique de l'Ouest. Je vous remercie de votre aimable attention. Thank you very much. Obrigado. Merci.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your presentation. Before giving the floor to Ms. Teresa Botella, Deputy Chief of Mission of the International Organization for Migration in Morocco, please allow me to introduce her. Ms. Teresa Botella is Acting Deputy Chief of Mission of International Organization for Migration in Morocco. Ms. Botella joined the International Organization as a project assistant in 2007 and has ever since held several positions with the organization. Prior to taking on her current role, she worked as a program manager at the IOM mission in Morocco. Ms. Botella holds a bachelor's degree in business administration from the Complutense University of Madrid and a master's degree in microfinance from the Autonomous University of Madrid before entering the field of international development work. Ms. Botella worked in marketing. So I'll give you the floor, Ms. Botella, please.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. First of all, I'd like to welcome you here in Morocco. I'm based here in Morocco, so I can say marhaba, welcome. I hope you will enjoy the city and the country as much as I do and that you'll have some time. And I would like to start thanking the organizers for inviting IOM, the International Organization for Migration, to talk about migration, environment, and climate change. I think it's a result of all the advocacy that has been doing IOM to make the link and to understand the link, the direct link that there is between environment, climate change, and migration. So thank you, and I'm glad that I'm here to speak a little bit more about what we do. First of all, I'd like to say that migration, climate change, and security It's complex equation with many variables. So it's true that the relationship between climate change and migration is often discussed through a security prism, whereby climate change on the one hand and migration on the other hand are seen as a threat to peace. Different scenarios do relate human mobility to climate change and security. Consider when climate change causes water or land resource scarcity, results in disputes, and leads to armed conflict. Or consider the situation when conflict leads to population displacement, adding pressure on existing resources in areas of destination, which in turn exacerbate tensions between host communities and displaced populations. Yet another scenario posits people displaced by disaster in temporary camps with fragile states becoming vulnerable to trafficking or recruited by armed conflict. While there is a strong evidence linking climate change to resource depletion and disaster and causing population movements, it is incorrect to assume that there is a causal link between this phenomenon and conflict and violence. This is why I would like to talk not from a strictly security point of view, but from a human security point of view. Human security is a tool to analyze those many factors of migration and the many ways in which migration interacts with other issues. A human security approach to address environment migration calls for a comprehensive view, but contextual to regions, assessing the types of events and corroborating it with socioeconomic factor levels of development and governance, existing conflict situations, demographic pressure, etc., and individual vulnerability factors, gender, poverty, dependency, environment for livelihood, and so on. To do so, it looks not only at environmental security, but also at individual, economic, and food security, as well as health, community, and political security. Focusing on environmental migration through the prism of human security means placing the individual, particularly the most vulnerable, at the center of the concern. So I just wanted to make this introduction to speak, to make you understand that exactly we don't talk about security, but about human security. But however, there is a link between migration, environment, and climate change. So what does IOM understand by environmental migrants? They are persons or groups of persons who predominantly for reasons of sudden or progressive change in the environment that adversely affects their lives or living conditions are obliged to leave their habitual homes or choose to do so either temporarily or permanently, and who move either within their country or abroad. This is important to understand because it makes us think of the type of environment concerns. We can see that there are slow onset, like desertification, land degradation, increase on the sea level, sudden onsets, like floods, hurricanes, storms, and so on, that oblige people to leave. So there are different types of migration phenomenon in there. We have permanent migration, we have temporary migration, we have migrants that are displaced within the country, and there are migrants that are displaced to other countries. It's important as well to understand that most of migrants displaced by environment and climate change stay within the country and move to other regions within the country, and those who are obliged to live abroad, they usually stay within the region, talking about continental level. So it's also to understand when we were talking before about migration, that most of the migrants, now we're talking about the MENA region, we have to understand that the region itself hosts 14% of the overall migration stock in the world. So this is a very strong migration pressure, most of them coming from the same region and in a region where there are a lot of environmental issues. I would like to highlight that environment is one of the root causes of migration, but it's very difficult as well to make a direct link and to understand it as the only reason. And these environment and climate change also are linked to changes on the economic position of the person. It may create social and political instability that lead people to migrate. So what are IUM's objectives in all this? We work very hard on migration governance in the context of environmental degradation and climate change. We can say that we work mainly at 3 levels. One, on prevention and finding solutions to make people stay. What can we do? It's just to understand that we have to work further to better protect the environment of regions that are affected by climate change, and these changes are increased because of pollution and so on. So we have to invest on climate actions to reduce emissions, to restore lands, to be careful with the pressure of water and so on. So on one hand, we work to make people stay and have better living conditions. On the other hand, we have to find solutions and protect those people that are obliged to move. So on that side, we work more on the humanitarian part to ensure water, access to clean water for those migrants that are on the move, water and sanitation, and all humanitarian aspects related to it. Thirdly, we also have to find solutions for people on the move. It's true that this climate change is going to increase. There are some statistics, you're more experts than I am, that say that people will be more and more forced to move because of climate change, unfortunately. And migration is a solution. It's not a problem. It's a solution for those people that cannot longer live in their countries. So at the same time, we work on them to stay where they are. For those who can, some of them cannot. And we have to find legal channels for them to migrate and to be protected. We have to ensure that they are adapted laws, that they have access to water, and we have to work on green labor schemes. For the MENA region, because we're talking about the Euro-Mediterranean region, I would just like to highlight 2 main migration and environment issues that are water and agriculture, that are specifically linked. We have to work further on water governance, understanding that water is not a resource of only one country, but very often a river starts in a country and continues in another one. So a regional governance of water is very important. Working on water scarcity, making sure that there are adapted strategies to make the best use of this water is fundamental. And the link between agriculture, natural resources, and migration. Same. Agriculture very often uses a lot of water resources, and we have to be careful. And at the same time, agriculture is a labor area that employs a lot of migrants. So we can see that there is a direct link as well. So we have to be careful of the good use of water and the protection of these migrants in agricultural employment. There needs to be a policy coherence between agriculture, labor, migration, and water. So what does IUM propose? What do we do in these areas? Just for you to know as well. IUM works on knowledge production, on data, which is like the first objective of the Global Compact for Migration. And so we work on data to have better information to better tackle these issues. We do capacity building and trainings to states, policymakers, people in the field in different scenarios and different countries. We do exchange of experiences and so on. We work at policy level and concrete actions, the concrete projects, as I was mentioning before, to prevent, to protect, and to promote regular migration channels. So at policy level, and just to finalize, I would just like to mention, one example is a platform on disaster and displacement, which take into consideration migrants due to climate change. There is also the Global Compact for Migration and for sure the Sustainable Development Goals that take into consideration these issues. It's important to mention that the Global Compact for Migration in its Objective 2 mentions, talks about how to create better and more secure environment in countries of origin to avoid that people are obliged to migrate. So we see that in Objective 2, to address the drivers of migration, there is this link between migration, environment, and climate change, and the same in, we can say, Objective number 5, because that talks about enhancing regular migration channels. I just wanted to highlight that because as IOM, we use the Global Compact for Migration, and we see that there are many regional commitments from most of the countries that are here around the table that engage ourselves to work further on migration and climate change. So IOM's engagement, we can say that on policy process, advocating the recognition of the nexus between migration and climate change in the countries and at these regional events. We build capacity, data evidence, and programs. I would just to say that IOM stays at your disposal if any of you would like to have further information, trainings, concrete programs, and so on. So thank you very much. Shukran bzaf. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. Before giving the floor to Mr. Ralph Ernst, Deputy Coordinator of OSCE Economic and Environmental Activities, Head of Environmental Activities at the office, please allow me to introduce him. Many of you know Mr. Ralph Ernst by his participation in autumn meeting in Andorra in 2017, where he made a very interesting report, and I am sure that today's presentations will be as interesting as before in Andorra. However, I would like to remind you that for more than 20 years, Mr. Ernst has been working in the areas of environmental management, climate change, and development. Before joining OSCE in September 2016, he was Chief Technical Advisor and Project Manager in with UNDP for Climate Change Adaptation and Disaster Risk Management in Timor-Leste. Prior to that, he worked for United Nations agencies and other national and international organizations in Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia. Mr. Ernst has extensive experience in project management and policy development in a range of areas: climate change, adaptation and migration, disaster risk management, and sustainable development. Now I'll give you the floor. Mr. Ernst, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to be able to address you again. As Ms. Tisena pointed out, I had the opportunity already 2 years ago to brief you on some of our work on climate change and security at your autumn meeting in Andorra. I have very good memories of that meeting, and I very much appreciate that you invited me again to continue our collaboration. I would also like to thank the government of Morocco for hosting this event and for the excellent facilities and the excellent management of everything here. Yeah, so 2 years ago I could brief you on one of our flagships projects on climate change and security. At a time that was still in full flow in implementation. We've now completed this. I will present some of the results, and I will also, matching the location where we are meeting today, we're focusing especially on security challenges created by climate change in the Mediterranean region. So I will focus my presentation on that particular region. So climate change. At the OSCE, we consider climate change as a threat multiplier. Climate change does not necessarily create new threats, but it exacerbates threats and increases risks and environmental stresses. That was already referred to by the previous speakers. Some OSCE regions experience water-related stresses, and climate change is likely to increase these stresses. And the Mediterranean region experiences drought periods is certainly a case, an example for this scenario, and scientists expect further water stress in this region. Many participating states of the OSCE experience extreme weather events, and climate change is likely to result in more frequent and more intense such events. And these environmental stresses can result in increased competition over access to natural resources like water, of course, to the disruption of food production and to increased food prices. And such developments may also result in migratory streams, although this has already been referred to. So climate change also has impacts on energy security in different ways. I point this out because the OSCE, in fact, my team is working to improve disaster risk management in the energy sector of participating states to address exactly these risks from climate change to the sector. At the OSCE Ministerial Council meeting in December, we expect to be able to launch a visual training center on disaster risk management in the energy sector, which we are currently developing in close cooperation with the current OSCE chairmanship, the Slovak government. Experts from the OSCE region and potentially beyond will then be able to improve their knowledge on disaster risk reduction in the energy sector and to network with experts from other countries. Okay, I referred already to this project, our flagship project on climate change and security in Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and the Southern Caucasus. This was our first large project on climate change. It was funded mainly by the EU Instrument for Stability and with a contribution also from the Austrian Development Agency. It was implemented through the Environment and Security Initiative, ENFSEC, which today comprises the OSCE, the United Nations Development Programme, United Nations Environment Programme, and the UN Economic Commission for Europe. The regional centers, environmental centers for Eastern and Central Europe are still on the list. They were part of ENFSEC at a time when we implemented this project, but have not joined our recent renewal of the initiative. So it's now the 4 organizations that I mentioned. This is perhaps an opportunity to point out that we at the OSCE Secretariat, we are not an environmental organization. We are also not a development organization. We are a security organization. Yeah, but we join forces with partners with other strengths to seek the synergies. And the NSEC initiative has existed for 15 years and is a good example of such a model, such an instrument for joining the capacities and skills of different organizations. This project that I mentioned, the key outputs of this project were regional participatory assessments of climate change and security and the identification of hotspots of such developments in 3 regions, in Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and the South Caucasus. So we looked at security situations in these countries and the natural situation, socioeconomic situation, how climate change will result in changes to these systems and how they interact with each other. And on this basis, we identified hotspots in these 3 regions. So some of the key outputs of the project were training for key stakeholders on security impacts of climate change and adaptation measures. We had a range of public outreach activities, hearings, the dissemination of project results. We have a large number of publications that is available, for example, on the OSCE homepage. And one very concrete output was the transboundary adaptation strategy for the Dniester River Basin, which was endorsed by the governments of Ukraine and Moldova. We have a long history of working with these countries on water management in the Dniester River Basin, and this was one further step in this process and in this cooperation. So, and now, what has happened since we have completed that project? We've developed a follow-up project, a follow-on project. It's entitled Strengthening Responses to Security Risks from Climate Change in Southern Eastern Europe, the South Caucasus, and Central Asia. So you can see, first of all, we have increased the regional scope of our work on climate change and security. Our new project includes Southeastern Europe, and we just started work on the regional climate change and security assessment for the countries of this region. And this work should be completed by mid-next year. In addition, and depending on funding that we need to raise, in each of the 4 regions, we would like to pick some of the hotspots and start with the development of mitigation and adaptation strategies for these hotspots. And an essential element of the project is then also the development of briefing materials for key target groups again, including parliamentarians, and the organization of briefing and information sharing events and events where best practice experiences can be shared. And now, particularly relevant for our event today, we are working closely with the Union for the Mediterranean, also in the development of a project on the prevention of climate and environment security threats in the Mediterranean. In this project, we want to focus on awareness raising, strengthening capacities of local and national authorities and stakeholders, and the development of regional cooperation in adapting to the security impacts of climate change. Based all this, again, on assessments of the climate change impacts in the region and how they interact with security developments, with the security development situation, and how this creates hotspots for these processes. These are some of the meetings that we have held with UFM, with the Union for the Mediterranean. The development of such a project does not happen overnight. No? It takes time, it takes a lot of analysis to identify the actual objectives, to identify how to get there, to identify indicators that also measure progress and so on. So we had a number of meetings with UFM but I expect over the next months we can complete the project development process and then raise funds for the actual implementation in cooperation with UFM. Before I close, a few words about our cooperation between the OSCE Secretariat, the Office for the Coordination of OSCE Economic and Environmental Activities, and the Parliamentary Assembly. As it was pointed out, I think we have a good cooperation. Yeah, I have attended several of your meetings. In addition to the autumn meetings, I attended once a Leinfelder seminar, which I also much appreciated. You probably know Ambassador Zugic, the coordinator of OSCE Economic and Environmental Activities, who also regularly briefs the Parliamentary Assembly on our work at the winter meetings in Vienna. We have a good cooperation, and I think we should continue with that. We are very proud that we can host Ms. Desena regularly also in our meetings, and we have a close cooperation, of course, with the colleagues of the Parliamentary Assembly Secretariat. We should continue with that. We are always prepared to provide additional briefings, seminars, information also for regional groups of the Parliamentary Assembly, or if that's wanted for national processes. Yesterday, Minister Voridis made a strong call for the work of parliamentarians in the implementation of international agreements, and he reminded you of the responsibilities that you have, that when governments sign and agree to international contracts, international agreements, you have a responsibility to make sure they follow up with that and implement these commitments and agreements. And if we can help in any way in such processes with information on our work, on the assessments of climate change and security, then we are always happy to do that. We are discussing at the moment with the Secretariat whether we should host an additional event at the winter meeting, a technical seminar perhaps, for more details on the assessments that we have conducted, perhaps specifically for one or two regions, where we can go into more detail what it actually all means and how we have come to the results. If that is of interest, well, we will further discuss it, perhaps through a side event that would be possible. And then I thank you again for your attention. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hearns, for your presentation. We will now hold the discussion. Members are free to intervene and to pose direct questions to our distinguished panelists. We have 27 members to speak that already have asked to speak. So speaking time will be limited to 3 minutes, in maximum 4 minutes for each speech. I call on Mr. Junila from Finland and prepare Mr. Trobayev from Kyrgyzstan. So, Mr. Junila, you have the floor.
Madam Chairman, distinguished colleagues and our Mediterranean partners, I would like to remind our colleagues that OSCE is built on 3 security-related dimensions. We should remember the purpose of the OSCE. While the world has many challenges and the climate change may well be one of the biggest ever, this organization was founded on principles of security-related dimensions. First dimension, politico-military dimension, which contains arms control, border management, conflict prevention, countering terrorism, policing reform, and cooperation in the security sector. The second dimension, the economic and environmental dimension, includes economic and environmental activities and good governance. And the third dimension, a human dimension, that contains human rights, elections, media freedom, minority issues, rule of law, tolerance, and non-discrimination. Most of these values directly involve the Mediterranean. Most of the challenges affect the Mediterranean, and many of the issues ahead require the cooperation of our 6 Mediterranean partners. I think it is good to recall that the importance of the Mediterranean region was already recognized in the final act of the OSCE adopted in 1975. A special mention was made of the questions related to the security in the Mediterranean in the final act. Therefore, cooperation with the Mediterranean countries is included in the 3 dimensions of the OSCE. Today, the OSCE process, the principles and values are shared by our Mediterranean countries. I'm sure most participating states agree that those values, those issues, and those dimensions are also in the interest of the participating states as a whole. In fact, we should prioritize our resources on being what we were meant to be, a security and a cooperation organization. Threats across our borders, the climate change, terrorism, radicalization, and violent extremism and so forth are actually cross-dimensional. While we are speaking of climate change and the environmental migration here today, the migration, especially increasing it, is not exactly a priority here at the OSCE PEA, and it shouldn't be. Finland believes many other associations and partners are already fully engaged answering to challenges posed by migration. In spite of that, skirt phenomena related to migration are part of the agenda. For example, foreign terrorist fighters who migrated and are causing a security threat in and around Europe. One of those related security issues includes the rescued sea migrants and the proposed plans to redistribute those people into Europe, which I personally do not agree with. Also, migration today doesn't only bring insecurity inside our borders, it affects our labor markets. The issue at hand is not only the free movement of the people, but the free movement of cheap labor and poor working conditions. Climate change hastens all of that. For OSCE, the migration is addressed cross-dimensionally. OSCE's role in all of this is regulating migration, border management, travel document security, and countering transnational threats, including human trafficking along migration routes. I heed that message to our friends at the European Union. I'm getting to it. Instead of proposing a plan behind closed doors with only a handful of interior ministers, I truly believe in openly cooperating with our Mediterranean partners and other affected countries. It isn't a constructive way to form guidelines behind locked doors and hope that majority of the member states would eventually agree to it. That kind of process is more political in nature than a good-natured resolution to a delicate human tragedy. Without the proper dialogue, there won't be a sustainable solution. After all, we should not weaken our own security, no matter how much urge we have to
I'll
help those in
appreciate
need.
if you conclude, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll appreciate in the next, to the next speakers if you be on time, in maximum for 4 minutes. Otherwise, we can conclude on time. Thank you. You from Sweden, please. No. Okay, thank you. So I'll give the floor now to Mr. Torobayev from Kyrgyzstan and prepare Mr. Dobrev from Romania. Please, you have the floor. Kyrgyzstan.
Здравствуйте, уважаемые коллеги. Я хотел поблагодарить докладчиков, ораторов И за прекрасный доклад хотел тоже выразить признательность господину Ральф Эрнесту. Уважаемые участники заседания, в настоящее время изменение климата стало беспрецедентным вызовом, угрозой безопасности и устойчивому развитию человечества. Мы сегодня являемся свидетелями, как изменение климата приводит к природным катаклизмам и чрезвычайным ситуациям, продовольственным и гуманитарным кризисам, дефициту водных ресурсов. Появилась особая разновидность перемещения населения, вызванного природными катаклизмами – это экологическая миграция. Эти негативные последствия касаются всего мирового сообщества, в том числе и нашей горной страны. Кыргызская республика уже сегодня на себе испытывает пагубные последствия глобального изменения климата. Особую тревогу вызывает стремительное таяние тысячелетних ледников, колебания водности горных рек, деградация уникальных горных экосистем, которые, как следствие, приводят к негативным социальным последствиям. По различным прогнозам, к 2025 году площадь оледнения в Кыргызской республике может в среднем сократиться на 30–40%, вследствие чего ожидается уменьшение на 25–35% водности рек Центральной Азии. Кыргызская республика в стратегические документы развития страны включили вопрос адаптации к изменению климата, низкоуглеродного и зеленого развития, целью которой является создание основ по внедрению подходов зеленой экономики и развития приоритетных секторов страны. Сегодня Центральная Азия располагает значительным потенциалом для перехода на экологически чистую электроэнергию. Реализация проектов по строительству гидроэлектростанции в Кыргызской республике и Республике Таджикистан позволит полную реализацию ООН. Кыргызская республика, будучи зоной формирования водных ресурсов Центральной Азии, располагает наименьшим доступом к питьевой воде на душу населения. Глобальные изменения климата сопровождаются увеличением повторяемости и разрушительной силы опасных природных процессов и явлений, как лесные пожары, оползни, сели, паводки, что приводит к увеличению потока экологической миграции. Экологическую миграцию сложно прогнозировать, однако любому государству необходимо учитывать риски стихийных бедствий, и это постоянно действующий очаг напряженности и социального конфликта в развивающих странах. Уважаемый участник заседания, если говорить о Центральной Азии в рамках обсуждаемого сегодня вопроса, то во внешней политике Кыргызской республики сотрудничество со странами Центральноазиатского региона является приоритетной и важной. Кыргызская сторона со своей стороны придерживается всех достигнутых договоренностей и принятых обязательств перед соседями. Мы привержены совместными усилиями и в дальнейшем укреплять узы дружбы и добрососедства. Подобное убеждение основано на понимании необходимости последующего фокусирования на развитии регионального сотрудничества между странами региона в области экономики, транспорта и транзита, торговли и инвестиций, сельского хозяйства и промышленной кооперации, укрепление гуманитарных связей и взаимодействия в сфере безопасности, в том числе экологической безопасности. И хочу в конце выразить огромную благодарность коллегам из солнечной, теплой страны Марокко за прекрасный теплый прием. Благодарю за внимание.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Mr. Dobre from Romania and prepare Mrs. Sanonian from Armenia, please. You have the floor, Mr. Dobre.
Dear Madam Chair, it is obvious that the climate change is already affecting regions and the world, the Euro-Mediterranean region included. Environmental and climate risks have a visible and major impact on the economy, well as on the security and well-being of citizens. Climate change is already exacerbating the pressure on existing water resources. The scarcity of water can become a factor leading the conflicts and mass displacement. In addition, floods and droughts can force entire population to leave their homes. In this context, reducing the vulnerability and strengthening the resilience of communities and states with regard to climate change remains undoubtedly essential. Promoting sustainable economic development, investing in resilience, adaptation and mitigation help building the people's resilience to climate change. Moreover, the rule of law and the economic developments are two sides of the same coin. Good governance is essential for economic development. We can observe that the Mediterranean region is particularly vulnerable to water scarcity. The OSCE is well placed to look at the security aspects of climate change. OSCE has been a long-standing facilitator of dialogue and cooperation on environmental and water management issues and has a valuable track record in this field. And at this point, our role as parliamentarians is of paramount importance. We have to make use of our specific known tools in order to enable OSCE to continuously adapt to such new challenges and to support a continuous sharing of best practice in these fields, including with OSCE's Mediterranean partners. Avant de finir, Madame la Présidente, je veux remercier à nos collègues marocains pour la haute qualité de cette première réunion de notre organisation en dehors de notre frontière et dans cette magnifique et emblématique ville de Marrakech, une ville emblématique pour leur royaume. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dobre. Dear colleagues, I'd like to inform you that the speakers list is now concluded, and we'll move to Mrs. Sanonian from Armenia and prepare Ms. Kalma from Finland, please.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Armenia is a developed country and ready to have contribution in resisting global challenges is still affected by climate change. In the last 10 years, the temperature of Armenia has increased by 0.4 degrees, which is considered average, but it has an impact on the water basin, flora and fauna, also woodland. Young people and school children around the world call for peaceful rallies and strikes, calling on the authorities to take measures as long as there is a time to prevent imminent environmental disasters. These children and the youth are the alarming sound of the future, and they need to be heard. We should hear them. There is also an active debate in Armenia concerning the reviewing environmental issues and economic opportunities. We should all understand that the traditional rules of economic development in the world have brought many serious changes in the climate of the world. We need to step up our cooperation on economic innovation and energy-saving technologies. Environmentally friendly economy is a priority for Armenia as well. We have registered progress in this field, also with OSCE and wide network of ARA centers in different cities in Armenia, which has helped to enhance the role of green indicators in economic decision-making. With 15 centers, Armenia has the largest network of ARA centers on wildfire management. Membership of Armenia in the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative is also an important step to promote good environment governance and reduce environmental risk in cooperation with civil society. Dear colleagues, natural disasters don't recognize borders, as well as the protection of human rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the European Convention on Human Rights affirm the right to life as a fundamental right. However, we cannot fulfill the protection of this right if we don't not protect the environment as a source of healthiness for that light. Thank you for attention.
Thank you very much. Now I'll give the floor to Ms. Haraldsdottir from Iceland and Ms. Pia Kalma from Finland, and prepare Ms. Haraldsdottir from Iceland. Please, Ms. Kalma, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, over the recent years there has been more and more discussion on climate change and how it impacts security. Africa is one of the most fragile areas. In 2050, the population in Africa will be doubled from today, meaning that even 25% of the world's population will be living here. And unlike Europe, which is aging, half of the people in Africa will be young, less than 24 years old. Many of the young Africans will be living in cities or near cities. What is a bit worrying here in Africa is that urbanization has not brought enough industrialization nor prosperity, at least not the same way as it has done in other parts of the world. And Africa is heavily in debt. It has been estimated that 20% of Africa's public debt is of Chinese origin. Now, climate change in this scenario even amplifies the already existing risks. Farmers will be getting even poorer crops, and young people in the cities will be competing with each other of the same jobs even stronger than now, especially if the education system is not working properly. Many of these young people will be migrating to Europe if they cannot see a promising future in Africa. Madam Chair, chers collègues, malgré tous ces problèmes, je voudrais brosser un tableau plus positif de cette région pour l'avenir. En ce qui concerne les affaires internationales, l'Afrique est devenue un partenaire de plus en plus important pour les entreprises européennes. Ceci s'est passé grâce à la croissance de l'économie et le fait que les pays africains ont eu besoin de construire meilleures infrastructures comme les chemins routiers, les chemins de fer, l'accès à l'eau pur, les réseaux de télécommunications et les réseaux d'énergie. Madame Chair, nous sommes au Maroc maintenant. Je suis particulièrement contente de la décision du gouvernement du Maroc selon laquelle en 2030, la moitié de l'énergie au Maroc sera basée aux sources d'énergie renouvelables au lieu de la source d'énergie fossile. Le soleil, le vent et l'eau, voilà les ressources. Je félicite le gouvernement ainsi que tous les Marocains de cette décision très sage. Avec la connectivité économique et avec la coopération avec d'autres pays, il vous va être possible de pouvoir profiter des inventions de la nouvelle génération. Prenons par exemple les carburants synthétiques. Il est possible que dans quelques années, nous pourrons les fabriquer avec une technologie qui peut capturer du carbone de l'atmosphère. Le rôle de l'Afrique en développant cela sera très important, surtout grâce au soleil et les conditions de climat favorables. Madam Chair, my colleagues, it has been very interesting to listen to you all here today. I think that Congressman Hastings from the United States used very wise words in his speech yesterday. He recognized the risk of social and economic despair and that we should not fall into that. He said that we need less talk and more collective action. My dear colleagues, I couldn't agree more with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kalma. Now I'll give the floor to Ms. Haraldsdottir from Iceland and prepare Mr. Stelios from Greece.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I would like to thank our host. Marrakech is a wonderful city, and it is certainly a great idea to have our autumn meeting here, especially for someone like me coming from Iceland, where flights are being cancelled right now because of weather restrictions. I'm sorry if I'm intruding this session, as it is to be about the Euro-Mediterranean region and the challenge posed by climate changes. But let's all bear in mind that the climate has no borders, neither the sea. There is no doubt in my mind that climate changes is fast becoming the single most serious challenge to global peace, security, and development. And I hope we can all agree on that and the fact that now is the time to act. Sustainable development, with particular emphasis on the ocean, climate and energy, and social and economic developments, are one of Iceland's principles in our national and foreign affairs. Iceland chairs the Arctic Council until 2021. The Council has shown remarkable leadership in promoting sustainable development and practical cooperation in the High North, and we will nurture the development and practice, and I'm sure that it can be used as a model for other regions of the world, as local action can drive global changes. While technology will be a big part of the solution, with electric cars and renewable energy fueling our economies, we will also need to nurture our soul and restore our land in fighting the climate change. This is reflected in the ambitious new climate strategy of the Government of Iceland, put in place to meet our Paris Agreement targets for 2030 and make Iceland carbon neutral by 2040. The bedrock of the small island Iceland's independence and success has been in the international rule-based order, with its open market, free trade, multilateral institutions, liberal democracy, and international cooperation. Now, with everything happening in international politics, I believe it's very important to stand by principles on free trade, human rights, and international law, and I hope my colleagues here